naturally with me, everything turns into a competition. So we've got the same 24-inch bar and chain. I took it off the Ego and I put it on the Greenworks. Now I'm going to use the big battery with the Greenworks as a comparison to the big battery on the Ego. See how many cuts we get off of this. This chain has cut all that stuff. Hopefully, this log was drugged through the dirt, but I did try to clean it off pretty well, so hopefully it didn't dull the chain at all. But let's do some cuts and see how it compares. Now at this point, the battery's not dead, it's not overheated. I'm showing 11%, but I would probably change out the battery because it keeps, you see it starts to keep cutting out a little bit. That's just a pain. So even though it's still working, I would switch over to a fresh battery at this point. When I took the bar and chain off of the Ego to put it on the other chainsaw, this shaft coming off the motor, this was hot. And I wish I had shot it with the thermo, but it had to be, I don't know, it was definitely over 100 degrees. Maybe not 200, but it was hot. Like, you couldn't hold your finger on it. It was hot. Alright, so I took the cover plate off of the Greenworks also. Like I mentioned I had done with the Ego, because I wanted to feel, this is the drive shaft. This hooks directly into the motor. And like I said, the Ego was very hot. I wanted to see if this one was as hot. So it's warm, but it's not hot. And I'll give it a few minutes because sometimes it takes a little bit for the heat to come out, and I'll check it again. But yeah, you know what? And I'll hit it with the heat gun just so we can get some sort of temperature, and then maybe we'll see. We do another test with the Ego, what that temperature is, because I'm curious about that. But this is definitely not nearly as hot as the Ego was, and we just did, I think, 17 cuts because I threw another battery in. $87, $92, $97. I'll try to get in all the spots. So 97 was the hottest I could find, and we'll come back to this in a few minutes. And I do want to mention the battery, the 8 amp battery that was in here. Even though I could still cut with it, you saw that it started cutting out. It's not charging right now because it says it's too hot to take a charge. So that's a thing to consider also, that's happening. So now that it's cooled down, the 12 amp hour Ego battery is saying it has 4 bars left out of 5. So I don't know how many cuts it would have gotten. It's a kind of it'd be good to know. Comparison between the two, I think it's sort of funny because one of the features that I find nice about this is that you can lean on it and it doesn't cut out. And it has this load meter over on the side that shows, you know, that you fully engaged your little load meter here. That thing shoots all the way up, you know, and it shows that your load's fully engaged, or you're putting a full load on it. But the saw will still go. It doesn't cut out. I mean, you really have to lean on this thing to get it to cut out. And you can hear the engine working, or the motor working really hard. So I like that feature because you can back off of it, but maybe I just tend not to back off of it. So maybe we'll try this, and we'll try just not to lean on it as hard and see if we can get more life out of the battery. The Greenworks, which is probably one of the features I find very annoying, is that if you start to lean on it too hard, it cuts out. But I'm going to say that's probably the feature that saves it from getting overheated and overheating the battery and making too much draw, because it just won't let you. And you see in the cuts, it will still cut aggressively, but if you try to lean on this thing too hard, it's just like, nope, sorry, you're out. Try again. Back off, buddy. And like I said, even though I find that annoying, I think that's probably the reason why this thing's getting, 16 cuts before the thing starts acting like, oh, hey. And I mean, in all honesty, it's really because the battery's getting towards the end of its life as much as anything else. So I just shot 100 on a spot somewhere. So it's still going up a little bit. But like I said, this is nowhere near as hot. Nowhere near the heat coming out of this as there was coming out of this. And that's after 17 cuts. And this one, I did 2 more with another battery. So that's after a total of, can't remember, like 9 or 10 cuts. So a lot of features I like about this saw. And maybe we'll see, backing off using my own hand and this meter. But boy, 2 years old and this thing's still cutting like a champ. All right, so I was just thinking about the two chainsaws, the Ego and the Greenworks, and sometimes I think of stuff afterwards, so I figured I'd mention it while I was thinking about it. But those cuts, I mean, what I was doing was basically torture test. I don't know how other people cut their wood or whatever, but I mean, I pretty much never took my finger off the trigger for the whole time, just wide open the whole time. I mean, I don't cut wood like that. I might cut 2, 3, 4 pieces, move a couple things around, then cut 2, 3, 4 more pieces. But I don't just cut like, with my finger on the trigger, not taking it off continuously. So, that's as hard as, it's harder than it will ever be for either of those saws. So we want to know, I want to know. So I put that out there, but I'll try it, in a more realistic setting. I got some down trees they got to cut up, so we'll use those saws, see how long the batteries last. Might even go back to the smaller, like the 8 and the 5 amp hour batteries, depending on how much wood I get to cut up. But try some different stuff out, But I just figured I'd share that because, it's, I mean, the 6 or 7 cuts was pretty disappointing. Somebody mentioned that the 10 amp hour batteries are set up differently and they can give more power. Not 100% how that works, but I'm willing to give it a shot. I did notice, I think the cuts for the Ego anyway were actually a little bit quicker with the 12 amp hour battery than they were with the 8 amp hour battery. And again, I'm just pushing that thing as hard as I can. Like if I watch the load meter and I slow my roll a little bit, probably won't overheat the batteries like that. But I'm just putting it right to it to see what I can get out of it. So just wanted to share that. Yeah, some of the stuff that I've read and researched kind of indicates that up to this point, you know, kind of with everything that's electric, that's cordless, batteries, how much power you can get from the batteries versus how much weight the batteries are the limiting factor. I mean, of course, you can put a bigger motor in anything, but being able to supply it with continuous power and keep the motor and or the batteries from overheating is the trick to it. And that, you know, that's the limiting factor. That's what everybody's working to get past. And I'm sure, you know, when they program these things, like I mentioned, the difference between the Greenworks and the Ego. The Ego is a little bit more enjoyable to use because it doesn't cut out, but it's in terms of using it, you get a little less out of it if you're letting the motor slowing be your indication, which is kind of, and maybe that's the difference. Maybe that's the difference of getting used to gas versus battery, right? Because with the gas, I feel the things start to bog a little bit, and then that's kind of keep it like right at the, you know, right where it's revving almost as fast as it can, but it's digging in, but it's not bogging down. I try to keep that fine line, and maybe with the electric, I got to bring that closer to just letting it rev and letting the saw, you know, letting the weight of the saw do more work and not leaning on it as much. We'll see. I do want to do some tests with different chains, you know, researching square cut, hexa cut, you know, round file, factory cut, like trying some different, same chain, different cuts, different chains, seeing what'll get the most out of it, because it might not be the same for gas as electric as it is for gas. You know, maybe those differences will make it so that different chains do better with that type of saw. So it's all, the whole thing's a learning experience and trying to get it down